Hello, welcome to today's edition of Pegasus Test. On today's edition, we're testing out the LMT 37mm M203 and some various 37mm smoke grenades. So last year, right before the Zombie 3-gun Invitational, I picked me up a Brownells BRN 16A1 rifle. Received it, went right into the match with it, and had a great time. Matter of fact, my only complaint about the BRN 16A1 compared to the M16A1 I had in the service is that it's mint cherry brand new. It's the only one like that I've ever seen. You know, it doesn't have kill carved into the stock. The handguards made it up and were solid. The thing ran like a top. It didn't have any problems. Nobody put 10,000 rounds of blanks through it and abused it. It was weird. It was cherry. I just having a hard time adjusting to it. And then, you know, I got all nostalgic and stuff, said, oh man, I gotta have a 203. And sure enough, Brownells has an M203, a real honest-to-God M203 from LMT, except it's in 37mm, so it's technically not a grenade launcher, it's a flare launcher. And so what we're gonna do today is test out this flare launcher M203 and see how it works with some various smoke rounds, just to see what smoke output you can get from a 37mm round versus an actual smoke grenade. Now, since we're testing smoke grenades, we're going to follow our standard methodology that we've done in all our other smoke grenade tests. And if you want to check those out, look in the description box and we'll have some links there. So what do we have is we've got some IPSC style targets down at the end of the shooting range here. They're 75 yards from the camera. And normally I would deploy a smoke grenade at about the 50-yard mark, and you can see how it obscured the targets. And we will do that later in the video for comparison purposes, but right now I'm just going to go ahead, launch a smoke grenade down there and see what output we get and see what obscurant ability it gives us. Well, that was fairly disappointing. That one went nowhere. I shouldn't say nowhere. It went about 50 yards, and then it put out a very little smoke. So obviously this is not for obscurant purposes. This is more for marking and signaling. But let's give it a few more shots and see what we get. Hey everybody, quick spoiler alert here. When I received these grenades, I had placed an order all at once for several different types of rounds, and due to a back order situation, they came to me in separate lots, and somebody at the factory had a bad day and just matched the lots. What I mean is they mislabeled them. So when my flare rounds arrived, they were labeled as smoke. When my smoke rounds arrived, they were labeled as flares. And you know, everybody can have a bad day at the warehouse, so I'm not very upset with the company over it and everything. But it just explains my methodology and why I'm describing what I'm describing, what you see here in the video. I'm still going to follow through with this, so you can just follow my methodology, see how it's coming to my conclusions. So please keep watching. Alright, so that's the second quote-unquote smoke grenade I've launched. It gives a nice, great, bright green signature, so as a marking device, I definitely think it's got some potential. And we're going to try this out at night. I don't know what video we'll capture of that, but we're definitely going to give it a try and see how that would be good. Good for marking a target to have the rest of your fire team focus in on. Right now, in the daylight, in the conditions we have in a setting sun, I would go ahead and say that it does have some potential, although it's coming with a set of range limitations because I had my tangent sight up, I aimed for 100 yards, got about 50 at best. So you're not getting the same range out of these as you would with regular 40mm rounds. Alright, now for comparison purposes, here's a Mil-X green smoke grenade from Enola Gay. And this is roughly about the same size and output as an M18. And here are the 37mm smoke grenades that we have. So fraction of the size. So when there was no expectation it would put out the same amount of smoke for obscurant capabilities. It's just a test to see what it would put out. We're going to fire off a couple more rounds here just to see if there's some consistency between them. But obviously, 37 millimeter, you're not laying down a smoke screen to cover the movement of your troops. You're just marking a target for them to light up.
All right. Well, it's gotten dark. We're going to try that green smoke marking round here just as it's dusk. The sun's down. The light's fading. And it's before an evening nautical twilight, and we're going to see how well this marking round works. Okay, this Psionics camera makes night look like day, and we got about the same results. But what I'm seeing to the naked eye, for a second, it didn't get off much smoke because it is a marking round, but the bright flash of it did give you a point. This could be used as a marking and signaling device for either letting people know where you're at or telling your teammates where you need them to direct their firepower.
All right, we're going to finish up this daylight test with a smoke comparison. So we're trying to do as apples and apples as much as possible. The 37 millimeter smoke rounds we launched were in green. I have a green Mil X here. So I'm going to go ahead and follow our standard methodology. I'm going to go deploy this about the 50-yard line and see how it obscures our targets downrange. All right, well there you have it. A handheld smoke grenade is going to put out orders of magnitude more smoke than the 37 millimeter launched smoke grenade is going to do. 37 millimeter launch grenades are just marking and signaling purposes only, but a hoot to shoot. Now, just for the record, that smoke grenade just deployed didn't exactly obscure the targets, but that had to do with prevailing wind conditions here on the range today. That's why I moved the camera around a little bit. It has some funky wind blowing it one direction, then it would get up some height and then blow it the other direction, and then as it dispersed, it blew it back on towards the camera. So there was definitely, depending on your point of view, some obscurant going along, but not exactly from the camera's point of view. Here's a general safety note about smoke grenades, the Mil X in particular, but smoke grenades in general. As you can see, this is the aftermath of that grenade being deployed that you watched. It's made a stain on the ground and up to and including some almost burn marks. And if you look closely here at the top of the grenade, it's melted a bit because heat interacts with the component inside and turns a powder into a smoke cloud. And as you can see, it's coated the gravel and the brass that were on the ground. So when you're deploying one of these smoke grenades, be cognizant of where you throw it. You could be creating a fire hazard, and you could be marking or damaging something that you don't want damaged. So don't throw these into vehicles, don't throw these under vehicles, do not throw these in a combustible area if it can be avoided. Alright, here's one of the impacts of one of the smoke grenades we launched, and as you can see, it has stained the ground like the Mil-X smoke grenades have done in previous videos. So this is something to be cognizant of when you launch a round downrange.
Alright, next round we're testing is a parachute flare to see how it lights up the area. Well, that's a very interesting result we've gotten. So where I got this ammo from has mismarked the rounds. So the small rounds I was firing earlier that I said were smoke rounds, well, turns out they did put out some smoke, but not very much. I said only good for marking and signaling due to their bright flash. Apparently, those are flares. And what they had marked as the flare rounds clearly output some smoke. So we're going to go ahead and save our last smoke round to redo a comparison between that and a regular smoke grenade in a future video. So we fired off a second one of those smoke rounds, and they definitely put out more than what we were told was a smoke, which was actually a flare, which makes more sense. But actually, it could have some obscurant effect, but it'd have to be used in mass. And that's a subject for a future video as well.
Well, one thing we can say, the LMT 37mm M203 works. It works exactly the same way as the actual M203 and 40mm works. You run the action forward, put in a shell, pull it back, cock it, fire it, eject your empty. Now this accoutrement to your rifle does not come cheap. It's like in the $1,300 range on a rifle that was under $1,000. So you're really buying it for nostalgia or aesthetic purposes. But be that as it may, it doesn't make it any less cool. And 37mm ain't cheap, but it is fun to launch. We hope you found this review of the LMT M203 37mm launcher helpful and informative. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and tune in for future smoke grenade test reviews.